special good night to each and every one of you. Let me just highlight the fact that we are live on Love 97 and Star 106.5 FM tonight. And we want to again welcome our radio audience tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an esteemed panel, and I will go down the list and introduce each of them. We started with Mr. Joe DARVILLE, a well-known educator, an activist in our country, and someone passionate about the issues on which we are here to discuss tonight. Please give him a round of applause. Our second panelist, attorney at law ROMI FERREIRA, who's also an ecologist and very passionate about the Bahamas as well, having served in many capacities throughout the years, including several of our well-known law firms, having been in private practice for some 10 years himself. He's been in this fight for some 24 years in his career. Let's welcome him tonight. Next to him is attorney at law Paul Moss, who has also been very active in politics in our country, as well as many human rights and social issues. Mr. Moss has been very passionate and very dedicated and focused for years now on a number of national issues, and tonight he lends his voice to this very important cause. Let's welcome Mr. Paul Moss. Next to him, attorney at law, Mr. Fred Smith, QC, also very well known in our islands, his Commonwealth of the Bahamas, for being at the forefront of a number of important issues in our country, and certainly someone who has been attached to the struggle in the regards for environmental awareness and the protection of our environment. Ladies and gentlemen, let's please welcome Mr. Fred Smith, QC. Finally, next to him, you just, of course, was introduced to the chairman, Reverend Dr. C.B. Moss, who's no stranger, having served on a number of committees in our country, a well-known person in the religious community, as well as a well-known human rights and social activist. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. and Reverend Dr. C.B. Moss, pardon me. We're going to allow our panelists at this time to have brief remarks as we introduce so many to this issue. A number of Bahamians are traditionally preoccupied with a lot of their own personal lives and issues. And sometimes these very important events and issues can go unnoticed. And that is why we want to thank the coalition for making this town hall style meeting a priority and having it broadcast throughout so that persons can know what's going on with our environment and how there is a big threat to what we know at this time. We're going to start with Mr. Joe DARVILLE as he will open us up with his opening remarks.
Okay, pleasant good afternoon, everyone. This is a bittersweet experience. For one thing, we should not even be here. We are celebrating 41 years of independence, and yet we have no access to what happens to anything in our country. You know something? There is no real estate, coastal real estate left in the United States of America and many other places in the world. Consequently, the eyes are focused now on the archipelagic nation of the Bahamas. Unfortunately, they find it very easy to invade us. They come here and they seduce our leaders. They use the ploy of providing jobs, but that is never their objective. Their objective is simply that they can use these islands, which seem to be for sale. I hate to say it, but it seems to be across the universe now, across the globe, that the Bahamas is once again a country for sale. And we as a nation, we as a people cannot allow it to happen. We talked tonight about sin. This is a sin. Sin in its original terminology means missing the step or missing the mark. And someone, Reverend C.B. Moss, I think, said that the government is making a mistake. The government at the present time is sinning. There is no other way you can put it other than they are sinning because they are giving away for nothing our heritage patrimony. We cannot ever allow that to happen. This is a moral and sacred battle mission that we are fighting. This is no little thing whatsoever. We do not want a physical or violent revolution in this country, but we need a revolution in terms of minds of people recognizing their heritage, their allegiance to what God has given us. God has given us the most beautiful country on the earth. There's no disputing that. From outer space, when the astronauts cycle the globe, then they look down on the globe and they examine every crook and cranny, every lake, every coral reef or whatever they can see from that vantage point. They made a decision. They said that the Bahamas was the most beautiful country in the world, and they called it the gem of Mother Earth. My beloved brothers and sisters, we have a responsibility. The breast, the womb, and the belly of Mother Earth belongs to us in this archipelagic nation. Whether it's the sea, whether it's the coral reef, whether it's the sand, whether it's the air, whether it's the underground, deep ocean, mangroves, bays, etc., it belongs to us, the Bahamian people. We are glad to share it with anyone who comes here and respects what we have. We do not need invaders in this country. We do not need people to come here and to devastate our environment for their benefit. Let me say something that if you acquire unto yourself $35 million worth of anything without proper permission or given the right to own it, there's a name for that. There's a name for that. I would be called a thief and I would be put in prison if I did it. And therefore, we must see to it that our government, they represent us. They are employed by us. We are the stewards of this beautiful, sacred gift that God has given us. And our only objective, and is based upon truth and integrity, is to safeguard, protect this beautiful earth that God has given us. If we continue in the path that we're doing by selling every key that's available in Exuma Keys, Abaco, etc., it means that in the future, in 1,000 years from now, our people will have to look, they'll become transient. They would have to look to other places in the world, and there wouldn't be any places to go anymore. And so it will create internal strife, and there will be a violent revolution in this country. I am warning my government tonight. Get it right. Get it right. Look to the rights of the people. Stop fooling around. Stop pussyfooting in colleagues with other people that are destroying our environment. This belongs to us now and to future generations. I have a lot more I can say, but I just want to say that we are environmental pioneers. And I want everyone in here tonight to be considered himself or herself an environmental pioneer. It means that, and those out there who are listening on the radio, you better get on board, because you're going to find yourself maybe going back to Haiti looking for someplace to find, because there'll be nothing left. As I said to governments, whether they're, and I'm not accusing, I'm accusing both, PLP and FNM, whoever been in power, you better get it right. Because I've been saying to them a long time ago, Bahamians are feeling dispossessed. And I said to them, every single Bahamian in this country, there's enough crown land that's under the stewardship of the Prime Minister, enough crown land for every single Bahamian coming out of high school before that to own 1 acre of land. If we don't own, if we do not have a possession within this land, then our young people will destroy it. So come on, get it right. I'm putting the warning out of there. You know, I am Joseph, and I have a vision. And that vision is that you better get it right. You better free our people. You better give them a Freedom of Information Act, an Environmental Protection Act, so that they know what you're doing and they know not to let you destroy what God has given us so abundantly.
Thank you so much. ROMI, Attorney at Law ROMI FERREIRA, you're next, sir.
Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed an honor and a privilege to be here with you. I also want to extend special greetings to those listening via radio. Your participation in this Say No to NYGARD, Save Clifton Town meeting is a sure indication of your love for this country, and we welcome you. As we stand in the shadow of our nation's 41st anniversary of independence, we ought to pause for the good of our country and examine the state of affairs in our beloved Bahama land. What comes to mind is this: the famous passage, "Your old men will dream dreams and your young men see visions." This about sums up what's happening in our country. The vision of a better Bahamas is lost. The visions of our young people strangled, all because we're led by an old regime who are incapable of looking to the future because they're too busy looking back, making their dreams and the dreams of their friends and family come true. Young men with vision founded our country. They gave us institutions like the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, national insurance. They established tourism and banking to be the drivers of our economy. They led us to emancipation, majority rule, and independence. But independence symbolized not an end, but also a beginning. What's really missing now is the vision to see us through to the other side. Every facet of our country is being stifled by leadership, which both refuses to take responsibility for its actions and crushes the vision of the young, to such an extent that only 1/3 of the Bahamians who leave this country to study abroad return home. 2/3 of our young people, 2/3, are lost to us because their vision is not embraced. They see no place for themselves in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. This is the case in every sphere. A constitutional dictator obsessed with dreams of holding on to power at the expense of the young rules over us. We do not see our young people being groomed to take over the mantle of leadership and to put forward their vision of a better Bahamas. Instead, we see a prime minister making the dreams of his old friends come true, bringing them 1 by 1 and 2 by 2 and 3 by 3 out of retirement to act as advisors or to be reappointed to old jobs or sometimes new jobs, sending the clear message to our young people that you are not welcome in this place. When young members of government stand up for transparency, for accountability, and an end to the corrupt practices that they are chastised and bullied into silence, well, we will be silent no longer. We cannot. A recent report by the United States State Department pointing out a lack of transparency in the award of government contracts and a culture of corruption was recently made public. Instead of addressing the issues, they do what they always do: try to divide us along political lines while they continue to plunder. Unacceptable. I want to remind everybody in this room that 14 years ago we stood up for ourselves and we won. Instead of a gated community, we now have the Clifton Heritage Park, sacred land representing all elements of Bahamian history from the Arawaks to the Lucayans. Instead of gates keeping us out, we have tours taking us through and recounting the Bahamian story. 14 years ago, we stared down the face of evil and unwise development, and we won the victory only because we stood together. Amen. Against overwhelming odds and secret deals. Today, the threats to Clifton Bay and Georges Beach are very different, but yet they are the same. Unregulated development. On Wednesday, the 18th of June, 2014, a government notice was published in the Nassau Guardian, inviting interested persons and organizations to review information at the Department of Physical Planning, located in the Ministry of Works JFK Drive, in relation to an application made by Mr. Peter NYGARD for a lease of Crown land. This is the very same man who grew his property from 2.85 acres to 6.1 acres. The same man who, after being told to cease and desist and to correct the situation, ignored an order of the government. The same man who donated thousands of dollars to the PLP and who released the now infamous video, we won after the elections of 2012. Given this backdrop, it was really no surprise that the government was trying to keep us in the dark. They preferred to negotiate in secret. There was no building permit application to inspect, no site plan approval, nor ground lease applications to inspect. Documents which were supposed to be put up on the best website were not put there. This notice was a sham, plain and simple. Let me tell you something. In order for us to make an informed decision, we first need all the information. I got to remind the government that we are not all stupid. Give us the information and give us time to digest it. I have to tell all of you to beware, because they are wolves in sheep's clothing, my friend. Their objective is to keep us in the dark while their friends and their family steal and pillage not only what belongs to us, but what belongs to our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. In Guanaqui, you gave away the land on the beach for $1 an acre. That land now sells for $5 million an acre. Regrettably, I can't afford any of it. In Blackbird's Key, you rushed to approve for your friends a development which would result in animal cruelty. In Bimini, to please your new friends, you approved a project which by the developer's own studies, they say is unsustainable. You allowed dredging to go on without the proper permits. Come on, man. You have your son, you have the son of your advisor working directly with the developers, and you don't see this as a conflict of interest. Come on, man. You sold Phil for a 70-acre man-made island at 50 cents a cubic yard. Come on, man. The Bahamas is a very different place now than what you may have cut your teeth on. The hopes and the aspirations of the people have changed. It is indeed a new day, and it's time to send a clear message. No longer are we prepared to sit back and watch you and your friends destroy our country. We want all, as in all, every single one of those structures removed from NYGARD Point and the original coastline restored. Give nature a chance to heal itself, and it will. We don't want you to sacrifice Jaws Beach for your people and for your friends. We want the beach restored with full public access. I want you to realize as you drive around New Providence that there are very few places left for us to go. Very few. Everywhere you turn is a gate. And you know something? Behind those gates, there's an unspoken message, but we all get it loud and clear. And that message is, you're not welcome here. You can't come in here. If you don't have enough money, you can't get in here. If you don't know so-and-so, you can't come in. Well, enough is enough. This is a leadership issue. We need leadership that seeks to empower its people. We want and we demand an Environmental Protection Act underpinned by a Freedom of Information Act. This is the only way to root up corruption, and it must be rooted up. Our country was founded by young men with a vision. Our three prime ministers, the great Sir Lyndon Pinland, the great Hubert Ingram, and the great Perry Christie, well, let me tell you, they represent the Moses style of leadership. They have taken us as far as they possibly can. It's now time for new leadership to take our country forward. A time for vision that promotes respect for the environment and respect for the Bahamian people. You know what we need? We need a vision committed to ending secret deals and corruption. It's now a time for Joshua leadership. The silent revolution would have been a waste if we replaced the Bay Street Boys with the Sunshine Boys. We can't have one set of rules for parliamentarians and another for over the hill. We can't have planning laws enforced against those who are unable to make large campaign contributions to political parties, while those who can do as they please. We are the heirs of the young men who founded this nation. The hopes of our parents who built it are vested on our shoulders. We have in our hands the power to abolish unregulated development and send a message so that every developer knows that we are not, and I repeat, not a nation for sale. This is the fight of our generation. We have to do this for ourselves and for our children and for our grandchildren. We have to stand on the sacrifices of our forefathers who came before us and demand a better way of governance. So I say to you this evening, join us. Go on the web, www.savethebase.bs, sign the petition. March down to the Ministry of Works first thing tomorrow and demand to see the information. Ask for Mr. Zonacle personally. He'll be delighted to assist you. Say no to unregulated development and the leadership which fosters it. Root it out. Say no to NYGARD. Save Clifton. Save George Speech. Thank you very much.
An excellent presentation by Mr. ROMI FERREIRA. Excellent presentation. We now move to Mr. Paul Morse, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. It is always my pleasure to speak on such issues, particularly when I see in front of me all of you who are friends of the Bahamas, who are citizens of this country, and those of you who love the environment. Our country has many attributes, and every time I have an opportunity to travel and look around the world, I am convinced that this is the most beautiful country in the world. And I don't say it just because it is cliche or that is biased because this is where I live. That is the absolute truth. And there are many people that I've met who have said the same to me, and it is true. You just need to look at the country in which they are from and then understand the sheer beauty of what we have. And many of you know that this country has been in many respects undeveloped. And you can go to many islands of this country and find it just as how it was 30 years ago. And even though we have been negligent in the development of our country, in many respects, it is a good thing. Because now we have an opportunity to plan it, to get it right. And I say that the way to plan is to pass laws. And not just pass laws, but to uphold the law. And anytime you have a country where when foreign investors come to a country, they have to meet with the executive, it is open season for corruption. There's no need for it. And the reason why the Bahamas and countries like the Bahamas continue to be underdeveloped countries with high unemployment rate, no prospect of jobs, no innovation, no creativity amongst its leaders, it is because they failed to pass laws because they like the corruption. In other words, the investor must come and see them. There's no need for it. Many of us who have had opportunities to open companies and corporations around the world would know that there's no need to meet with anybody. You simply look at the law. In fact, you look at the website even before you travel. You find out what it is. Laws must be followed. You pay your dues and you are in business. That's not the case in the Bahamas. And it's not the case because we love corruption. The reality is this, that because our leaders, and I speak our leaders, and I mean even historically, we can go back as far from the very beginning of this nation 41 years ago, do not understand the nature of this country. We don't understand the nature of our identity. That is why we allow so many things to go on. And when you find that the only thing that comes off of our leaders' lips when they meet with an investor is, how many jobs are you going to create? It tells you that you are doomed to fail and you're doomed from the start. We have to move away from it. And the way to move away from it is to really understand the country, understand the limitations of the country, and really plan it out, map it out properly. There's no way that we ought to be able to have unsustainable development like I saw down at Clifton, damaging the coastline and causing systemic problems, not just for that particular point, for all around the coastline. We got to stop it. And so when people talk about This is about NYGARD. For me, it's not about him. It's never about him. It is about our leaders doing the right thing and making sure that they adhere to the law, make sure that everything is done in a proper fashion, and ensure that the legacies are left for generations to come. And so tonight, I'm very pleased to be here. I'm pleased to see all of you, and I'm pleased that you would tell your MP, under no uncertain terms, that he ought to ensure that the law is followed, that we preserve our environment, and we actually get that place, what was formerly known as Sims Point, to be restored to its original state by allowing nature to have its own way.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Paul Morse. We now turn our attention to our next panelist, Mr. Fred Smith, QC.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being out tonight. Seeing so many faces here tonight, especially so many young ones, shows that people care about their environment. The environment belongs to all of us. And if we allow investors to just come and take away our environment, take away our birthright, and invade, as Joe Darville said, and not invest, soon enough there will be no Bahamas left for Bahamians. Now, we heard A.D. Hanna, we heard Sir Lyndon Pindling, we've heard Loftus Roker, we've heard a lot of the former great parliamentarians speak about the Bahamas being for Bahamians. And that is what we are forgetting today. Every time we give away an acre of Crown land, 500 acres of Crown land, thousands of acres of Crown land in Mayaguana, for the foreign developers to come and develop it like a piece of real estate that they can just sell to every other foreigner, no Bahamian will ever be able to own 1 acre of Crown land in their lives. The Bahamas belongs to us, and the Prime Minister is the trustee of our Crown land. And so when Mr. Peter NYGARD, and I welcome Mr. NYGARD and many other investors to come, but not as invaders, I welcome them all to come, but to be respectful of our home, our backyard, our environment, our land. And the problem is that most investors are not. And worse still is that our politicians don't require them to be respectful. That's the evil that we are facing. Be it FNM or PLP, the fact that our leaders do not demand respect for our homeland. That is the problem. And so when Mr. NYGARD can have the gall and the audacity, let me read this letter to you, when he can write to the man who is now our Prime Minister and say to him, my total pledge, and I quote, my total pledge and contributions to your party and some of its members is now up to $45,000 to date. Quite significant, I think you will agree. That's Mr. NYGARD writing to Perry Christie. I ask you now to help me bring to a final conclusion a few housekeeping issues before I come back. He is telling my Prime Minister what he wants him to do before he comes back from Canada. That is indecent. We have been given approval to build off our property onto the beach area, which is Crown property. Even NYGARD knows it's Crown property. He says it in the letter. See attached letter. Also, I've been informed, I don't have to read that part, it's not as emotive as the rest. Let me come. I have also been informed now by 9 Roll that the government has now officially approved the changing of the name of the tip called NYGARD Key from the present wording, I believe, to be Sims Point. Well, let me tell Mr. NYGARD, my grandmother came from Sims, Long Island, and I want NYGARD Key to be called Sims Point, not NYGARD Key. So he is asking my Prime Minister to favor him by changing a piece of the Bahamas and calling it NYGARD Key instead of Sims Point, where my ancestors are from. That's not acceptable. Then he says, I would also appreciate you getting this done quick, because at At the time of writing this letter, Forbes magazine is coming down to do a story here on July 7, today. And for the end of the month, for lifestyles of the rich and famous. So I want the name to be officially changed so it can be promoted in the Bahamas as NYGARD Key. He thinks he owns my prime minister. Right. Let me tell you, Mr. NYGARD, you do not own Perry Christie. He is my servant, my employee. I pay taxes to keep him employed. You don't pay your taxes. Last time I checked, you owed nearly $250,000 in real property taxes at NYGARD Key. Who's going to write that check for you? It's about time you paid your taxes too. If you've paid them, that's good for you. But the last document I have shows that you haven't, Mr. NYGARD. And then he says, I also want Golden Key rental issue to be resolved because I am quickly running out of structural work at NYGARD Key. Let me tell you all, Golden Key is a little island off NYGARD Key. It's a rookery, a nesting ground for birds. It's a beautiful little island that has, and you've been there. You've seen, you've toured it. You see all of the reefs around. Mr. NYGARD used to mine coral off Golden Key to build his Mayan temple so he can grow stem cells to sacrifice at the altar of eternal youth. Today, on the Daryl Miller Show, he was saying he's reversing the aging process, and Daryl Miller is saying, show me your skin so beautiful. It looks so good. NYGARD said, I fix the girls that come to work for me if they don't have good-looking teeth. I fix their mouths. I fix their teeth. And Mr. Miller says, can you fix mine too? We have to stop prostrating ourselves at the feet of every foreigner that comes in here with some money. White, black, brown, whatever color. I am proud to be a Bahamian, and I'm not going to be owned by anybody. Then he says, I want that lease for Golden Key, and now would be the time to do it. Before July 24th. Because that is when we're going to have the lifestyle of the rich and famous shoot. Then, this is the kicker, ladies and gentlemen. This man, Mr. Peter NYGARD, who is asking the government to give him $35 million worth of crown land. You all know how much land is worth in Lyford Key? None of us can buy in Lyford Key. $35 million worth of crown land. He has now applied for permits to get. When every government, since the last 16 years, and I have every letter, has repeatedly written to him and said, tear down all your structures. What you've built is illegal. You're not getting any permits. But this man has the audacity to say this to Mr. Perry Christie when he was Minister of Trade, Agriculture, and Industries. Obviously, quote, let me have to quote this is beautiful. And this man has the audacity to write this. Obviously, this world is based on one hand helping the other. This man is writing to a cabinet minister, now our prime minister. And my prime minister now has the audacity to set up a consultation process to consider giving Peter NYGARD permits to retroactively approve everything he's done illegally for the last 16 years. What do we say? What do we say? No to NYGARD. Let me read you the rest of what he said to Perry Christie. I hope you're listening, Mr. Christie, my prime minister, because you gotta say no to NYGARD too. Obviously, this whole world is based on one hand helping the other. And you know, I am prepared to do whatever is in my capacity to help out the Bahamas and the PLP party. And, here it is, and of course, yourself in any way that I can. Now, is this the kind of man you want trying to corrupt your prime minister and take away your crown land? Let me hear you say, no to NYGARD, no to NYGARD, no to NYGARD. Thank you very much, Coalition to Save Clifton, Reverend Moss, for bringing all of us Bahamian citizens here tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen, You can receive a copy of that sermon by Reverend Fred Smith immediately following. It was passionate. That was my point. I'm telling you, man, I love it. I love it. I know, but you were good. I'm telling you, you got me ready to march, man. You're ready to go. All right. It's serious. It is serious. And tonight is all about exposing the wrongs that are going on in our country. And we thank our panel for doing so. We will go to Reverend Moss and then give you a chance to voice your opinion and to ask our panel any questions you have. Reverend Dr. C.B. Moss.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. As I look around this packed room, there are so many giants in this room representing organizations. And I know they have a lot to say this evening. And so I'm going to give them the maximum amount of time possible. I should just like to set the stage from the coalition's perspective. As many of you are aware, 15 years ago, it was proposed to construct a gated community at Clifton Point. The Coalition to Save Clifton was born, and with the support of thousands of Bahamians and non-Bahamians, we fought for and successfully canceled those plans. We invited the government to establish a land and sea park inclusive of Clifton Bay. The government in 2004 established the land park with a promise to include the sea park later. Well, we heard little from them until last year, when it was revealed that the whole area was under great destruction as a result of pollutants in the water, but also unregulated coastal development at Sims Point. We approached the government with a request for a meeting. The government has not even acknowledged our letter. We've written the Prime Minister on 3 occasions. He has never responded. We reminded the Prime Minister that in 2002, the Coalition to Save Clifton and the support of the Bahamian people were responsible for him winning that election. We're not saying that, he said it. On several occasions, he attributed his success in 2002 to the fight for Clifton. Now it was revealed that the owner of NYGARD Key had applied to the government of the Bahamas to lease the land that he had illegally accreted, almost doubling the size of his property. Now we want you to listen to this carefully. The Coalition to Save Clifton has never made any allegations against Mr. NYGARD. Everything that the coalition has said was repeated from documents by the government. Listen to this. This nation may not realize this, but the FNM government said that the work at NYGARD Key was destroying the area. Mr. NYGARD applied in 2010 to the government for the lease of that land, and the FNM government rejected the lease. And you will have in your hand or at the back a newspaper supplement which contains all of the correspondence. The FNM government in 2010 said to Mr. NYGARD, not only are we not going to approve this lease, which is contributing to the degrading of the area, but we instruct you to remove the artificial work that was put in the sea down there. Mr. NYGARD refused. The FNM government wrote him again, saying, if you continue to ignore our directive, the government will remove those man-made applications and they will charge you. They even told him that the approximate cost would be $3 million. At that time, we were headed into the 2012 election. And by Mr. NYGARD's own admission, he contributed heavily to the PLP with the understanding, agreement, promise, expectation, hope that they would now approve this application. After the PLP won in 2012, Mr. NYGARD submitted the same application to lease the same land to the PLP. Now listen to this. The PLP government, in documents, agreed with the FNM government that the work at NYGARD Key was destroying the area. However, they said we are minded, and that's the word of the PLP government, we are minded to consider the application because Mr. NYGARD has promised to build a stem cell facility on NYGARD Key to provide jobs, like somebody said. The PLP government said this. Last year, Mr. NYGARD said he's not going to build any stem cell facility there. As a matter of fact, the nation is aware that he went with great fanfare to Freeport in search of facilities there. He said he will not put a stem cell facility on NYGARD Key. So we again wrote the Prime Minister, copying every minister of the government, and saying to them, you said that the work was damaging the area. You said, in spite of that, you were willing to consider it in exchange for jobs. Now that the man said there'll be no jobs emanating from NYGARD Key, we asked the government, what is your justification for continuing to consider the application? They did not respond. The government has never responded to the coalition to save Clifton. That kind of contempt is unacceptable. The government does not rule this country. No. The government governs this country. And you cannot govern successfully when you show utter contempt and disrespect for the people you are supposed to govern. I'm going to conclude now because we must hear from you. 15 years ago, we said Clifton Key, as it was perceived by the foreign developers then, will never be. And it never was. We are now saying that NYGARD Key, as it is perceived by Mr. Peter NYGARD, will never be. It will never be.
Never be.
And the people of this country will speak. Let me say that the government 15 years ago was not receptive nor responsive to the coalition and our backers. They paid a price. And we are saying that any government that refuses to listen to the people should be called upon to pay the maximum price, which is go home.
Yeah, go home.
Go home. Go home. And we are saying that Clifton Key never was, NYGARD Key never will be. Mr. Moderator.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is now your time. And we open the floor for questions. We ask that you limit your questions to one question if you can, because we are on a budget time-wise with our broadcast.
Good evening, Stephen Cartwright here. I am with a group of young people who we are willing and able. We just want to know, I guess, what's next. I understand your approach to being active in and of ourselves. I'm just wondering if there's anything on your end that you're planning that we can assist with. And then also, I'm wondering why the government would want to permit stem cell research to go on at NYGARD Key after the video was circulated so widely of two individuals that had to leave and flee undercover.
My name is Tyrone Rock Morris. I am associated with the Commonwealth of the Bahamas Trade Union Congress. I just thank you wonderful folks for bringing this situation to the forefront for the Bahamian people. I just thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's a good start, but we can't finish. Tonight, I've heard nothing but corruption, corruption, and more corruption. It is disgraceful what I'm hearing as a Bahamian. We must stand up for our country. Many, many, many more is being lost here in the Bahamas. In fact, I was just recently informed that Atlantis, by the Commissioner of Police, that the Atlantis beach, Cabbage Beach, is private. I don't know how long it's been private. The Commissioner of Police has instructed his officers to arrest persons who Atlantis don't want on Cabbage Beach. In fact, this young lady and I just spent 2 nights in prison because her sin was not to leave her job, which she has a Bahamian license to work Cabbage Beach. And she was forced to leave. When she did not leave, she was arrested, and she just spent 2 nights in Central Police Station because she refused to leave her job that the Commissioner of Police has stated is now the private property of Atlantis. We got to stop this madness. Thank you very much.
Good night, everyone. My name is Ezra, and I'm a Bahamian. And I have a question for the panel. Do you guys remember what happened during the gambling referendum? What are we prepared to do, or how far are we prepared to go if the same thing happens here? What are we prepared to do if they just go on and do what they want to do instead of listening to the people?
It's a pleasure for me to be here. My name is Alfonso Smith. I am the president of the Bahamas Better Businessman Coalition Association. I see no reason why we should be talking about NYGARD. Who is NYGARD? Do we have a Bahamian government? You have a Bahamian government and a guy committed breach of the law and they can't do nothing? What are we doing? The name, listen here.
All right.
It's enough to set you crazy.
Okay, hold it right there. The name NYGARD should not be mentioned in these town meetings again. Let's talk about the people who commit the offenses. The government, not NYGARD.
That's right.
The government.
Amen.
Then, of course, we should not be talking about saving Clifton Key. Clifton Key is saved, man. Stop. Saving it from who? It belongs to me. Who are you saving? Look, stop giving the government credit for all these things that they're doing wrong. Okay, here it is. We're talking about corruption. The only way you're going to get rid of corruption in the Bahamas is to install the office of ombudsman.
True.
That has to be installed. All the previous government has mentioned about the Ombudsman Act. None of them put it in place. Ingram had 15 years to do it. He ain't put it in place. Christie had 7 years to do it. He ain't put it in place. We could not stop corruption until we get the Ombudsman Act in place. Let's start talking about that. Let's start talking about the Freedom of Information Act. Those two pieces of legislation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me tell you something. We waste too much time. We waste too much time in the Bahamas talking about things that doesn't matter. Mr. Christie went down to the Caribbean conference a couple of months ago in the Cayman Island. He made a pledge to make the Caribbean a corruption-free zone. How you could do that, man? And for 7 years in the Bahamas, you did nothing about corruption. You know?
This country that we love so much is under threat. Our leaders have been very much influenced. And tonight it is important. Names are important. I don't mind saying Peter NYGARD. I think it's important for him to know that people do not appreciate what he's doing. Our next question or comment.
I'm not here to be political, but rather kingdom-minded and in the best interest of the Bahamas. Without vision, we know people perish. And what we tolerate, we will not change, okay? We've tolerated foolishness for too long. The power is in the people.
Yes.
And I hear the passion of the panel. And I would say, in general, to the Bahamas, we cannot take business as usual. It's as simple as that. You know what I mean? We've put up with this madness and what the last government and this government is doing. Now, what are we prepared to do as a people?
That's right.
Moses' generation is dead. We are at a paradigm shift. It is Joshua and Caleb that took God's people into the promised land, okay? And looking back is death. I mean, we hear those kind of words. Looking back is Egypt. Looking back is what we don't need to do as a people. And so my question tonight is, especially to the learned lawyers on the panel, like Mr. Ferreira, Mr. Smith, Mr. Moss, what would you say within the context of the law can be done for the Bahamian people to override the decision, override Perry Christie, the present government, of going ahead with approving NYGARD?
Good evening, Bahamian people. My name is Romeo Bannister. To Mr. Fred Smith, you said something about concerning NYGARD and whoever others having private parties. Concerning the private parties, when are we going to have our private party? What date is it?
It's
July the 10th?
July 10th.
All right, July the 10th.
July 10th, you're invited to your public party on your public beach.
Okay, so therefore what I'm saying is that, you know, my friend was getting here, he's saying that we don't have no need to call NYGARD name.
Nope.
There's no need.
Same point.
All we need to do is just go down to the Bahamas printing service on Old Trail Road, and we probably print off like about 500,000, half a million, 250,000 shirts in white, and we just take them and put them on for July the 10th, and we go on the beach, and we let him know we ain't into that.
Yeah.
Okay, he gotta go. Him and his private parties, these little funny parties, you know, so we been told, they got to go. We ain't into that. I, for one, to tell you the truth, well, due to respect of the airwaves, I'll keep it to myself, but he gotta go.
Thank you.
We must save the Bahamian from the foreign migrant entities who continue to smuggle through our borders and to dictate to the Bahamian society, especially the conditions of the way we should move forward.
This month of July is a very important month for everybody who's a Bahamian. This is our independent month.
Absolutely.
And I sat here and I heard a letter that was documented by Mr. NYGARD and his so-called going someplace in Canada.
Keep going, sir.
Or New York, right? And it seems like they have no regard for the Bahamian sovereignty. Because if you could date a letter July, and then they say you can have some activities happening within this Commonwealth of Bahamas in the month of July, shows no respect for our sovereign right as a people. That's the comment I have. So based on that, Save the Coalition should go full out to get Mr. NYGARD out. My question to the panel, what are you all going to do with all the information that you all have documented to bring those people who have done a great injustice within the government system to justice, that they could be jailed and be made an example of, so that the rest who may come after Mr. NYGARD should know that they can't do this. The Bahamas is not for sale.
Hundreds have come together and today sued the government, sued the Prime Minister, sued the Director of Physical Planning, Mr. Major, sued the Deputy Prime Minister, and sued the Building Control Officer and the Town Planning Committee. All of these government agencies were today sued by hundreds, there's a list of them, of residents in the Clifton Bay area, hundreds of them, and also by Save the Bays. And we have filed a case against the government to stop this hypocritical consultation process that doesn't give you an opportunity to take away a copy of this document. How can you read and digest this? April 2013 report. Nobody can hardly read it. You can't, because it's very badly copied. This is the document they want you to digest at the ministry. Not take a copy of it away, and try to make your objections within a 21-day period, 6 days of which, as Reverend Moss says, are weekend days. This is a dishonest and a fraudulent consultation process. I'm very happy that my Prime Minister and my Deputy Prime Minister decided to have a consultation process for the first time in Bahamian history. They didn't have one in Guanakee, where they gave hundreds of acres of crown land away for $1. They didn't have it in Bimini, when they gave how many? Hundreds of thousands, 875,000 cubic yards of dredge for 55 cents a cubic yard. They didn't have a public consultation. They didn't have a public consultation in Blackbeards, where they gave it away to the Dutch fellow from Curacao to pen all the dolphins in inhuman conditions. And so we, in Save the Bays, And all of these residents in Clifton Bay have today sued the government in order to stop this hypocritical consultation process and say to the government, you must do this properly. You are our employees, and you must do this consultation process properly. Give us a proper and decent opportunity to participate. Give us the papers, give us the information, give us copies of the building permits so that we can know what it is. Mr. NYGARD, I'm sorry to say his name, Mr. Smith, Mr. NYGARD, we know what you're going to be doing that thing down there. And you cannot put up a stem cell facility in a residential neighborhood. No. You can't do a business in a residential neighborhood. No. I want to know what my politicians in government are thinking. Or are they simply not thinking? And just simply laughing up in Mr. NYGARD's face and having parties at NYGARD Keep.
Moderator, I want to add something to that. This is a sham. You know what this is? This is actually arrogance of the highest order. Your government is taking you for a fool. Actually, they're taking all of us for a fool. They put up a notice and they don't give you the information. They don't give you sufficient time. They don't let you read it. They don't let you take it home. They say the information is in one place, but it's really not there. That's the arrogance of what you're dealing with. And then when you write them for information, when you say, hey, minister, remember me? I'm a voter. I'm a citizen. Please tell me what's happening. They can't even be bothered to answer you. See, that is the arrogance that we're up against. That is the wickedness in high places that we face. But I want to remind everybody listening to me right now, including Mr. NYGARD, it was appointed unto men to die, and then after the judgment.
A report titled NYGARD Key Coastal Process Report, prepared in February 2014. And so everyone was invited to go down to inspect that report. When you go to the ministry, you will not find a government-commissioned 2014 report.
Wow.
You will find a NYGARD-commissioned report to guide the government. So my government is asking you to go and inspect a report commissioned by Mr. NYGARD to guide the government of the Bahamas. My government couldn't even bother to have an independent report commission. But the government says you can get a copy of that report on the BEST website. When you go to the BEST website, you can download this report, this 170-page monster. This monstrous report is a April 2013 report prepared by some other company, and it is not the report referred to in the government notice dated February 2014. So what we could do tonight is send a clear message to our government to please put together an honest and not a fraudulent consultation process, because the Bahamian people, we ain't stupid.
No, but Mr. Smith.
Mr. Ferreira.
I need to ask my learned senior one question. How is that report that you talked, you just talked about, it's really a NYGARD report that they have done there for us to see. How is that different from when we were in Bimini and we were fighting for Bimini? And the lawyers for the developer they used the same lawyer, and they told the government to issue the permit.
In London, when Mr. Ferreira and I were trying to fight to stop the dredging, the illegal, no permit dredging in Bimini, when we went to London to get an injunction to stop the dredging, the Bahamas government employed the same lawyer as the developers.
Oh.
The same.
Same lawyer. Shocking. The same man that stood in front of all 5 law lords was the lawyer for the government and the developer at the same time.
My goodness.
Well, you know what happened as a result of probably that?
Yes.
We got the injunction. The law lords in London at the Privy Council were not stupid either.
My goodness.
Right.
Just like the Bahamian people aren't stupid. Be honest in this process, O government of the Bahamas.
Yes.
And this is what we're saying, Minister Harris. We said, and I said, that there was no building permit application, no site plan approval, nor crown lease application to inspect. So how in the world Bahamians who want to inform themselves of what's going on in our country. You know, you have some of us that don't care. Whatever the government do is well done. But they don't speak for all of us. Look around this room and look at other like-minded Bahamians, and you'll see that they don't speak for all of us.
That's right.
So how in the world are we supposed to make up our minds about something if you don't give us the information?
That we have to talk about jobs. We have to demonstrate how many jobs will be in it. It's almost like, you know, it's a joke. When they come to the country, they say, well, we'll create 5,000 jobs, and their eyes light up because somehow, miraculously, they believe that when a person comes to the country to do an investment, somehow that speaks about how well they are governing, not recognizing that there are standards. I have colleagues in the United States, and they always say to me, how is it that you can give away what you give away for investors? When people come into the city of Miami, as an example, and they want to do an investment, the city tells them, well, you're going to bring more traffic to this particular area. You need to consider in your investment overpasses, you need green spaces, and who pays for that? You don't go to the people in the city of Miami and say, we're going to give them concessions, as we do. They pay for it. But in our country, we mortgage the future. We mortgage the land for generations to come. When we talk about Crown land, you have to understand that there's 3.5 million acres of Crown land in your country. And if you consider it, to own land in this country, one must be at least 18 years old. And if you look at it, we have 350,000 total. About 75 of them are under the age of 18. They can't own land. Many are lunatics. Many are in prison. So it leaves a smaller number. And yet still, even though people have made applications for years, they have not even gotten the courtesy of a response to acknowledge receipt of their letter. But you have people now who are able to come. Not only that, but create land and seek to get the permission to lease that land. Not just by writing a letter, but have every single executive, it would seem, in his corner to get it. So it's really a lack of creativity and incompetence.
We're not just encouraging a spirit of lawlessness, we're feeding it, and we're fostering it, and we're incubating it, and we're nurturing it, and we're encouraging it, and we're fertilizing it, and we do nothing to stop it. And so, it is what Mr. Smith said all along, and I'm a Smith too, and I'll tell you one thing, it's what you've been saying all along. We need leadership with the vision to enforce our laws, not just against poor black people over the hill, but against white foreign invaders that come to take what we have as well. The preamble to our Constitution is very clear. Christian values and an abiding respect for the rule of law.
Absolutely.
That means that the law applies to everybody. You can't just go in the ghetto and kick down somebody's house, slap up the women and lock everybody up. And then on the other hand, you just ignore these very egregious examples of malfeasance. We call on the Prime Minister to apply, this government actually, to apply the law equally to all. Who the cap fit? Let them wear it.
All of the papers are not available at the Ministry of Works for any Bahamian to go down and see what it is he has specifically applied for. I went down to the ministry, as did Reverend Moss and others have been down. I asked for a copy of the building permit. I was told by Mr. Zonical he couldn't find it. I said, don't you have the building permits in some kind of order? Yes. I said, well, this is an advertisement by a very controversial application. Can I see the building permit application? I'll see if I can find it for you. I spent a few hours at the ministry and I had to leave without seeing a copy of the permit application. I asked to see a copy of the Crown land application to lease the seabed.
The truth of the matter is, I've never seen the kind of despicable behavior as being demonstrated by Mr. NYGARD. Here is a foreigner who comes to our country and he wishes to do business with us. He should submit his application and then remain quiet and allow the government and the people of the Bahamas to make a determination. But he has more say than anybody else in this country. Once the government, guided by the people, would have made the decision, then that would be communicated to him. But he's all over, popping up all over, trying to dominate, intimidate, and dictate to the Bahamian people. Well, we must let the government know that we are not even listening to him, because he is an irrelevancy. We are talking to our government, and we are saying that our government should not and cannot trade with Mr. NYGARD or anybody else with what does not belong to them. That's what we want the government to understand. And we need you to tell your representative that. And when you are called upon to publicly demonstrate that that's your position, we need you to show up.
We're all here as a common people with the same thing in mind. We want justice to be done. But we realize that year after year, we keep coming back to these same town halls trying to get rid of NYGARD number 1 or NYGARD number 2 or NYGARD number 3. We keep kicking the can down the road. And we are fed up, right? Because we don't want short-term fixes.
Yes.
We want long-term solid solutions. My question to you, and I think every Bahamian, every concerned Bahamian would want to know, is when are we going to really start to sit down and put aside our partisan difference or special interests, come together as a people, and come up with common sense, long-term solutions to these problems? We can get rid of NYGARD today or tomorrow, but a year from now, another one is going to pop up. 5 years from now, another one. Can we come up with real solutions to these issues? Thank you.
I was completely, utterly, as a young man, my world was shattered, because here I am, I see the mess that is going on in my country. I see young people are selling themselves for nothing. I'm telling you, I see young men dying on the street every day. I deal with it every day. I deal with families living on the street, living in their cars, living in the beaches. I'm serious. These are the things that are going on. And I want to help my country. I want to help my people. But I am serious. If we don't get together and if we don't do something, we're not only losing the Bahamas, it seems to me like we've lost this fight already. And I'm telling you, we need to step up to the plate now. And I'm saying we need to stop being separated. We need to stop thinking it's about us. It's not. It's not about us. It's not about you or me. It's about saving our country for our children and our children's children. And I'm saying, for God's sake, let us come together. I was appalled when I saw my Prime Minister, after the U.S. State Department report, trying to justify the stupidness. I cannot help myself but saying it. I listened to him wrangle on and on and on and on, and I felt so ashamed as a young man. As a young man, I felt so ashamed to see my Prime Minister that I had so much respect for, to see him try to justify the stupidness. It seems to me like they are completely lost. They don't know what's going on a day-to-day basis with the Bahamian people. I'm telling you, we have people in the inner cities. I'm talking about foreigners invading and pillaging the inner cities. I live there. You understand? They have no idea of the pain and the suffering when people are losing their homes every day. Banks are repossessing homes. People are going to bed hungry. Kids are going to school without food. I'm telling you, literally. And I'm telling this government, get it together. And I'm saying, we don't need to wait for 2070. They need to go now.
Thank you so much, Mr. Newton.
The Haitians have a very strong drink. It's called tafia. It'll kill you. It'll drive you crazy. And I don't know what Mr. NYGARD gives to the politicians that go and have private parties at his house. He must give them tafia, because when they leave his house, they never make him take those structures down. They do not enforce the law. Letter after letter from different government authorities telling Mr. NYGARD to take down his illegal structures. And year after year, neither the FNM nor the PLP do it. So they must all be drinking tafia. That's all I can say.
Hi, good night. I am here to represent my younger generation, and I am very concerned that if we just give away our Bahamian land what are there going to be left for me and everyone else in my generation? Because we're the future of this nation, and I believe that we should just try to take our land back and take control of our country again.
We'll start with Mr. Joe Darville. Closing comments, Mr. Darville.
My beloved audience, men and women, and my fellow Bahamians, this country is loved by us. It is a treasure. It has been bestowed upon us as special people to own it and to treasure it. We need what we're doing in areas of preservation. We need them as our wilderness, because we need to be able to go into them and feel relaxed. Right now, we're being hemmed in, closed in. We cannot find places where we can open up our spirits, be rejuvenated, get in commune with our higher self, with our divine self, with the Creator, and create the beauty of this country, which is there in great potential. And so we must stop whatever is afoot in this country to destroy, pillage, and to allow invaders to come in and to take it. And that's our motive here. I have no other motive in being a director of Save the Bays other than that. And I speak on the basis of integrity and truth. I am almost 73 years old, and my time will come soon to cross over. But until that time comes, I will fight for the future generations to be able to enjoy this country.
Well said. Well said, Mr. Darville.
When I was 13 years old, my uncle took me to Andros, and it had a profound effect on my life. Not because Mr. Smith hails from Andros, but more importantly, because I encountered a pod of dolphins, and it was then that I decided that I wanted to bring law and environment together. I went away on government scholarships. That's how I got my education. I studied ecology and I studied law. I've devoted my entire life to this. I'm not just sitting up here talking about things that I don't believe. I believe it. You know, I believe it in my core. We have to do better. I want to encourage all of you to value ourselves more. Nobody can do that for us. We have to value ourselves for ourselves. We have to appreciate our environment for ourselves. And I'm going to tell you this. We cannot let them divide us along color lines, yellow, red, green, black, white, brown. These issues are national issues. The colors of these issues are black, gold, and aquamarine. Stand strong. Justice and truth and goodness must prevail over corruption and evil. God is not dead. He's still in charge.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ferreira. Mr. Paul Morse.
I'm very encouraged tonight for your presence and what I've heard, and certainly what I believe you're saying in your own spirit. It is important for us not to simply come to an event like tonight, leave tonight, and then wait until the next announcement has been made. I encourage you to speak in a very sober way to your member of parliament. And I say this really seriously because in times past, we never really did this. We know that the way and the manner in which we select people who go to parliament is really for that political party. It's not really for us. But you need to do so because I sense that there is a shift in the country on how we are going to govern ourselves and how we select people who want to serve us. The reality is this, that we need to set our standards. We need to have laws in place. I believe that if we have our laws in place and it's there on a website for all to see, there's no need for anyone to come to abuse the land. Trust me, they only come because they see what they can gain from this land. This country is the first landfall. Not America, not South America. This country is. And when people examine it, they say that this country sits 45 miles off of the greatest economy in the history of the world. Many see it. That's why they come. Many know that we have incompetency at the top. They know that they could come here, get the best, and negotiate way better than our people can negotiate. When they want 50,000 acres of land, they ask for 100,000 acres of land. And our guys just simply give them half of what they want. They always get what they want. But the reality is there is a shift. And we need to continue to take the shift outside the walls, down on the beach, down on the other areas of this environment in order to preserve it. Because I can tell you, you have a stewardship that you must carry out. And if you don't carry out, someone is going to take it. And they have been taking it. Now is the stand. And I applaud you tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Paul Morse. Closing remarks, Mr. Fred Smith.
Thank you. Thank you. Environmental concerns affect every Bahamian. Whether you're black, whether you're white, or whether you're like me, in between. And so, if we let our environment be desecrated, sacrificed at the altar of the almighty dollar, we will have no more tourism. We will have no more farmland. Our forests will become deserts. They want to sell thousands of acres in Abaco now for the Owens, Illinois company to come and deforest South Abaco. Well, I say no to that. They want to go and mine aragonite at East End. I say no to that. We must protect our resources so that we can have sightseeing tours, so that we can have ecotourism, so that we can have diving, so we can have fishing, so you can go conching, you can go lobstering, we can thrive from our environment, both economically, socially, and culturally. The family islands in the Bahamas, the crown land, the millions of acres of crown land that sits in our family islands, the family islands are not colonies of Nassau, there for foreigners and politicians, there for the picking to give away. We have cultures, we have societies, we have settlements that have been there for generations. They have to be respected. So when we talk about the environment, we're talking about cultural, social, physical, and marine. We're talking about those beautiful gems that exist in the family islands. Many of you who have not traveled in the family islands, it's very different from New Providence and Nassau. These places, the environment is important. The communities have a symbiosis, a relationship with the environment. And so I say we have to respect the locals in Guanaqui, in Bimini, in San Salvador, in Andros. Throughout the Bahamas, we must respect the family islands, which means respecting the environment for future generations of Bahamians. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fred Smith. Reverend Dr. C.B. Moss.
Thank you very much. My final comment is to all of you in this room and those listening by way of radio. Do not succumb to the intimidating tactics used by the oppressors. Once you take a stance against them, they try to destroy you. They say all manner of wicked things against you. 15 years ago, when the coalition, on the 8th day of February, we organized the coalition upstairs in Agnes Schoolroom on Blue Hill Road and Coburn Street. When we began to oppose the plans for the land, those of you who are around will recall, from the highest level in the government, it was an F&M government, the newspapers were filled with comments like, oh, C.B. Moss and the coalition are PLPs trying to bring down the F&M government. You remember that? You remember that? They said everything about us. Now that we are fighting for the Sea Park, they're saying C.B. Moss and the coalition are F&Ms. And they're trying to bring down the PLP government. You see how stupid they think we are? They divide it into politics. And they know that many of us, as soon as that begins to happen, we become intimidated and we run for cover. But we want to say to them, there's nothing that they can say about us now that they had not said 15 years ago. And we are still standing. And we will continue to stand. Don't be intimidated. They can do you nothing. Because once they've lied on you, they cannot do anything else. But folks, we're in the midst of celebrating the 41st year of anniversary of our nation. In 1967, when we attained majority rule, we had a little big nation that was pregnant with potential and possibilities. Those of us who are around, we envisage a nation that was going to be second to none on the face of God's earth. We attained our independence in 1973, and here, 41 years later, 41 short years later, that pregnancy is about to be aborted. The dreams, the possibilities, the potential that existed is about to be aborted, leaving us empty with nothing. We must not allow that to happen. For the sake of our children and our grandchildren, we must not allow that to happen. And we must be prepared, if necessary, to face the devil himself and to stare him down. We cannot cower under what we have. First of all, they ignore you. You know, the government has never responded to the coalition. 15 years ago, Mr. Christie and the PLP, I mean, they were our friends. Everything we say, they were supporting us and saying, yeah, yeah, yeah. But now they wouldn't even answer the letter. But that cannot intimidate us. And it will not intimidate us. And we're asking you not to let it intimidate you. Stand for him, folks. If not for yourself, stand for your children. Stand for your grandchildren. Don't let them ask 20 years down the road, why did daddy sit and allow this to happen? Why did daddy or mommy not do something? Stand for your children. And we wish you all a very, very wonderful anniversary of independence. It's not as wonderful as it could or should be, but let's at least keep as an objective that next celebration of independence is going to be better, with or without those who are opposing us now.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, as we prepare to conclude, politicians respond to one thing: numbers. That's what gets them in and gets them out. The more of you that can call the show on the radio, the more of you that can pressure them, you will be surprised how quickly they will respond. Will you let them take your things? Will you let them take your things? Call the Prime Minister's house. His number should be in the book. Don't let him have a restful night's sleep anymore. If you call him all night tonight, this thing will be stopped tomorrow. You don't think I'm joking? Call him tonight.